Hi, I'm Peggy Carruthers, Director of the Branded Content Studio at QSR Magazine and WTWH Media, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, 5 Actionable Trends in Online Ordering in 2024. In this webinar, we'll be discussing industry research and success stories that show how restaurants can maximize success in online ordering this year. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. First, a recording of this session will be linked at qsrmagazine.com, and you can also use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Second, slides for today's program are available for download using the resources widget in the webinar console. And finally, we will be answering audience questions at the end of the program, but please feel free to submit a question at any time. And now to begin, our featured speakers today are going to be Charles Gray, Chief Revenue Officer at Paytronix, and Tim Ridgely, Vice President of Online Ordering at Paytronix. I'll turn it over to Charles to get started.
Thanks, Hallie. So thrilled to be here today to talk a little bit about the trends in the online ordering space. And we're very lucky to have Tim Ridgely, who's been involved in this for almost a decade and has a great deal of experience in the online ordering world. We look at the online ordering world in so many different ways. I think about pre-pandemic, right? There was, I think the average was roughly 28% to 30% of restaurants had online ordering. And of course, that just went up to 98, 99% during it. And post that, there's been a lot of changes. There's new technologies and things. And so we're going to take a little bit of time today to talk about how we are approaching this, how inflation is impacting, how third-party fees are impacting brands, a little bit of how to scale online ordering, and really getting personal with your customers and having that one-to-one connection. And then goodbye Google ordering, as they remove the ordering feature, how to drive more guests directly to your website. So I'm going to ask Tim, to start with really the economy and how challenging it's been for so many. Tim, today McDonald's reported a drop in the low-income households going out to dine, at least dine it with McDonald's. How have you seen this economic environment affect online ordering in general?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. So I think it is good to look at the macro level, and then we can kind of zoom in to some of the more specific pieces parts, right? Inflation is persistent, right? So we're seeing it slow down, but it's not gone. And so we're seeing high costs across the board, right? And this impacts consumers with their disposable income. And it impacts the restaurant side, the operational side, right? Where everything costs more. High cost of capital is going to impact you. So where it was, we had a zero interest rate period for a while, and you could take more bets and be more exploratory. Now you should probably pull back on some of those things and really double down on the things that work. We did a prior webinar you can go back and listen to for anyone in the audience that really hammers down on these things. And then we're going to cover some more specifics here. We are looking to see an increase in overall online order volumes. More people are going to order online in 2024, but they're going to do so more cautiously. And I think we're going to see a trade down effect, right? So rather than pick a more premium option, I'm still going to get something, I'm going to get a lesser version of that thing. So you're going to see maybe an entree, but a lesser version of that entree, something like that. You see it all across the board, right? So groceries looking at this too. An interesting note while you're talking about the macro too, at this time last year, restaurant prices were up about 8% and grocery was up about 10, shade over 10. And so it actually became a little bit cheaper in terms of price change to dine out. And that's starting to flip, but they're still teetering on the brink, especially as you're into lower price brands. So as an operator, I'm thinking about focus, thinking about really doubling down on the things that work, getting really efficient with the things I'm doing. I want a high ROI on the investments I am making, right? I want those things to really turn a good investment for me. I'm gonna make fewer new bets. So I'm probably gonna pull back on some of the things I may have been trying that aren't working. And I'm gonna focus on like guest retention, right? So I wanna keep people coming back because it's gonna be more and more difficult to acquire new guests. And some of the things I'm gonna touch on here too, tech is only part of the equation, right? So some of the things we'll talk about are just things I'm seeing operators try and have success with. So obviously you came to talk about online ordering, so I want to make sure I answer the mail there, but I think there are some non-tech things that you can do to complement an online ordering strategy and have a more holistic view of the world.
Excellent. I think as we look at, there's been a long debate, I think, in the industry about first party, third party ordering. Certainly, I know there's sometimes a love-hate relationship with the Uber Eats, DoorDashes of the world. Do you see this as really, do third parties help our businesses? Are they augmenting them, or they're just table stakes for our industry now?
Yeah. Well, the ecosystem is interesting, right? I think we're going to see a shift towards first party. And I think as operators, you should be looking to move guests towards first party. You're never going to move all of them, right? The third parties are here to stay, at least for the intermediate term. And they're figuring out their way too, right? One of the big things we're seeing is legislation that increase the cost of these third party operations. So like Seattle and New York have enacted pretty hefty legislations. Like Seattle is a big one. You can look, I think the Dashers are going to earn either $23 or $27 an hour or something like that. If you look at their total earnings, it's done by mileage and time, but that's what it shakes out to. That's a pretty significant number, right? And so then I think we're going to see more people say, whoa, hold on, that's really expensive. Are there other options for me? Well, first party is a better option, right? Because the menu's not going to be marked up. You won't pay the service fees. And I think pickup is an option. It's like, hey, I don't really want to pay this exorbitant delivery fee and tip. It's like, great, go tip yourself, right? Domino's did a campaign around that, tip yourself, be your own delivery driver, and here's $3 off your next order. So I think we'll see a lot of that, right? Where it's the fees. As an operator, right, keep in mind those third parties, they're not looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves. And what they want to do is they want to take a guest when they come in and order from you, and they want the guest to try other brands on the marketplace. Just like when a guest orders from your menu, you want them to try other things on the menu, right? You want them to diversify their experience with you. The DoorDashes and Ubers of the world are doing the same thing. They're saying, boy, if I can convert this guest from a Tim's Tacos customer to a DoorDash customer and try many different brands so that when they're hungry and they're thinking of getting food, they open up the DoorDash app, I've got them, right? And that's absolutely what they're doing, right? Like, make no mistake. So you should push back and say, wow, how can we combat that? Well, we have some strategies here, so we'll dig into that. But build that relationship, right? And then the other thing too is you just don't get the data. You don't get the data with the relationship. So when a guest orders from the marketplace, you get Tim R. You don't get my phone number. You don't get my email. You don't get me to put in your list and let me know what you have going on. And those are things that your loyal guests do want to hear from, right? They want to know what your specials are, and if you have LTOs, and if you have interesting, exciting things going on, they want to hear from you. So keep those people engaged. Okay. And so I think this is a balance, right? I think you use both. And I think you use them for the right things. And if you use the tools for the right things, you have a good time. If you use a screwdriver to pound nails, you won't have a good time, right? So I think really a third-party marketplace serves two big functions. One of them is guest acquisition, like new customer acquisition. So I think of a marketplace as a fire hose. You turn this thing on and a fire hose of guests come in. It can be half your order volume. And I want to take and siphon off some of that water into your first party programs, right? Your first party ordering, your first party e-clubs and loyalty and guest engagement solutions and all that, so that they can interact with you directly, and you can move them off the marketplace and think of them as your customer rather than one of the marketplace. And then the other really key thing here is maximizing utilization, right? So you have slow days or day parts where you already have, you're staffed, you're paying the lease, every hour costs the same on your lease. Can you use the marketplace to supplement demand in those cases so that you have a more consistent demand curve? And so look at ways, just frankly, toggle them on and off, or limit them for the busy parts, right? If you're already slammed at 7:30 on a Friday, do you really need those incremental guest orders? Are those actually valuable for you? Or are you already at capacity and they're not actually profitable? Whereas at, 3:30 on a Tuesday, maybe those incremental orders are really profitable for you because you've got people standing around anyway, you're not doing prep, all that stuff's covered, right? So just, again, this is probably obvious to a lot of people, but hopefully that's how I'd be thinking about the third parties, right? And then let's work on converting them into your first party program. Personalization is a huge thing here, right? And it's going to look more like your brand, so that they're not just using a generic DoorDash interface, right? They get to see your menu and engage with it. Hopefully you have great imagery, those kinds of things. Mark up your third-party menu. Everybody does it. You know, if you pull up a third-party menu, the prices even look weird, like $5.42 for a combo. Like no one in their right mind would price it that way. It's because it's a markup, right? So your guests are going to pay more on third-party, and they're going to pay less when they order direct. And then make sure you market your first-party system. If you have loyalties and e-clubs and those kinds of things, fold it all together, right? This is a great time to make sure all of the parts in your ecosystem work well together, and you're pulling all the levers you can to drive that engagement. And then hopefully you have some really interesting and fun first-party tools that you can employ. Secret menu is a really fun one, right? Even just items on the menu that are not published to the third party. So first party only, like direct only items, you can only get this LTO, only get this special thing if you order direct, is one great way to go. But if you have a secret menu that you can promote to like loyalty guests that hit a certain tier, those kinds of things, so they get unique and special experiences, that's really cool. And they tell their friends. So all kinds of things you need to bring people across. And then I want to highlight one specific thing that we do. This is how we think about marketplace conversion at Paytronix. We have a solution that combines a few different parts of our platform, so that whenever a guest orders on the marketplace, that feeds through our marketplace management solution, a unique QR code and ticket with an offer prints from a special printer, and you staple that to the bag. And so then every single marketplace order is going to get this printout. The guest can scan it, and rather than having to save this, it's not a coupon for the future exactly. It's an enrollment into the loyalty and the e-club program, so that they enroll and then they get this offer attached to their account, and it expires pretty quick, right? So you say 30 days, something like that. We run a campaign around it. And then they're in the program right away, so you can begin marketing to them. The difference here, if it's just a coupon, they have to like magnet it to their fridge and then try and remember about it in 30 days, and they'll probably forget and it'll go away, right? If they scan it right away, it's immediately actionable. And then you can remind them and say, hey, you should come back. And you have this great offer, and it's a rich offer, right? We've seen 50% be used here, and it's been pretty effective to say, well, come on back and redeem this 50% off. And in 30 days, something like that, 45 days, even if you want to push it. And then after that first order, give them a bounce back, so they come back a second time. Here's another offer. You can build a whole campaign around this. And this is driving people, that big fire hose, into that first party program. And even if they don't redeem the offer, they're still in the program, right? So it's getting people into your loyalty base, into your e-club and your messaging, so that they're engaging with your brand and taking that fire hose of anonymous guests that you don't really get to market to, and diverting some percentage of them, right? 3, 4, 5% into your base. And just by stapling a ticket to a bag, it's pretty great. So that's a really specific piece of tactics we've seen work well. Okay.
Great. And really that, what were you talking about there with the tips around converting once you have them to first party? I think we're seeing a trend where offers are exclusive to that brand's app or online ordering experience. I know McDonald's, I believe IHOP as well, Burger King, large businesses are trying to drive that behavior into their first party ordering experience and offering those deals and specials, especially with the thin margins that we all operate under. Speaking of that, because of the tight margins that we have in this business, we have limited dollars to invest. When we have limited dollars, we're making some very specific decisions. There's not a lot of room for us to operationally change. And also we look at those buying decisions as something that maybe need to be postponed because we're unsure of our other suppliers' pricing going on. What are you seeing? How is this impacting the buying decisions?
Yeah. So there's always this battle of best of breed versus a consolidated platform, right? And I think we're seeing the choice swing toward a consolidated platform that works well together, both to gain efficiencies and just straight price reduction through bundling, right? Because if you buy 5 things from someone, it would be reasonable that they would give you a lower total price than if you buy one thing from 5 different people. But they also work better together because you have the people underpinning them, thinking about them. So Guest engagement is really a lot of parts. So this is kind of how we think about it at Paytronix, with loyalty and ordering and the mobile app being the hub of a lot of these things, but also layering in the third parties for delivery, right? So guest ordering on the first party properties, the web and mobile apps, but having third party fulfillment and marketplace management. So it's hooking up to the DoorDash and Uber Eats and Grubhub marketplaces, managing all those menus and things, gift, messaging, campaigns. There's a lot of moving parts here, right? And we want these things to be in lockstep. And just as an example, when I talk through the marketplace conversion solution, it touches a lot of that stack, right? Because the order comes in through the marketplace management solution, then it triggers the printout, the QR code scan and rolls in loyalty. There's a CRM and messaging component that engages with them through a campaign. They obviously have to order on through the direct first party online ordering platform. Then the loyalty program is re-engaged for a bounce back offer and that campaign, complete campaign. A lot of moving parts, right? So if you're trying to tie these things together individually, you're gonna go a little crazy, right? Or you can do it simply, but to really execute on it well, you need the full stack and you need to work really well together. So I think that's one example, and I'll show you a few other ones here. So I like to think about the guest experience. And I'm going to show you a bunch of guest experience things because I think they're fun to look at. And you've probably seen this. So we love points programs, right? You have 200 points, and 200 points means you should be able to get a free appetizer, right? Okay, great. And we watch a good deal of user interactions with different programs, and I've seen this personally where I go to my app and it says, okay, Tim, you have 200 points. Let's get a free appetizer. So I go to the online order section and I say, great, I want a free appetizer. And it's like, well, how do I do that? Oh, I don't. I have to go back in the app to the rewards section. And then in the rewards section, I see that there's a free appetizer reward and I claim that. And now I have the free appetizer reward loaded to my account. Then I go back to online ordering. And then I say, okay, well, now I have to add the appetizer item to my cart. And then I can add the free appetizer reward and I can go check out. So we've made this a whole bunch of steps. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit. All these steps had friction to the process. People are going to drop off the process. They're going to have a negative experience with your brand. And that's not really what you want. So do you want to have this or do you want to have this? And I can highlight here, I suppose, but there's just a checkbox to use points. So in this case, I go to the online ordering section, I find the appetizer I want, and I say I want to use points. So when you have the parts working seamlessly together, and what's happening under the covers is all of those steps, right? It is taking the points, it's turning into the reward, it's loading it to the account, it's adding the item to the order, and it's applying the reward, but all in one go. And when these parts work seamlessly together, it all gets so much simpler for everyone involved. And when you nail it, people don't even notice, right? When you really hit it right, it's completely seamless. And you're like, well, that's just obvious, right? But when it's not working well together, that's when it really becomes clear that you have an issue.
Thanks. That is, I think, one of the things that for all of us as consumers, right, that frictionless experience. It's the ability to just take the points and redeem them, not having to put in codes. I know so many times I get frustrated on retail sites where they're like, oh, yeah, and enter the promo code on the last page. And I forgot the promo code and I've got to go back to it, or I didn't apply it. And so, in the ordering process, creating that frictionless experience, I've got to believe that, consumers are better off, but also more likely to engage in the brand. So you talked about the shift from third party to first party, and we talked about some examples there of how to do it and how to and think about this. How do I know I'm being effective? So if my goal, and as you stated, shift some of that from the marketplace into my first party app so I can understand who they are, who I can market to, give offers and examples. How should I be measuring myself and thinking about the effectiveness of that?
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite things because it's pretty simple and yet really, really powerful. And I've done this for years and years and years, right? People would call me up and they say, hey, how do I know if my online ordering is working well? And the first thing I say is, let's look at your funnel, right? And you say, well, what's the funnel? Okay. A funnel is a really simple thing, right? Someone has to view your menu with purchase intent. There's a big thing there. I probably should have added a note. If they're viewing your menu without purchase intent, then they're just kicking tires. They just want to see what you offer. Fine. They're not going to get very far. Then they add an item to their order. They start the checkout process, they complete the checkout process, and then their order should be successfully fulfilled. Really, completing checkout is kind of the end of the marketing funnel, but you also want to make sure that they get their food correctly. And there's a bunch of things that can go wrong in that process, you've probably experienced. So let's make sure those are working well. This is the biggest and simplest thing to nail. And I'm going to show you some examples of where there are choices along the way. But as you add friction to each step of the process, you're going to have attrition. Guests are going to say, you know what, no thanks, right? It can be little things, it can be little nudges, or it can be big things where they're going to say, I don't want to do that, I'm too busy, I don't understand, I don't feel like it, and they're going to drop off, right? So I would look at the shape of your funnel. And so step one, and some of these things again are not tech, but the biggest one is look at this report and see what's there. I've even seen ones that are kind of wild where they're just like flat, like everyone that views the menu, adds an item, starts checkout, and completes the order, like it's a straight line across. And you're like, wow, you need to get more people looking at your menu because everyone that lands on the menu is buying from you. That's crazy, right? And then we go look at their website and we found that, oh, the order online link is buried. Someone had to like do a location search and then click on the location page and then click on one other thing and then they can order online from that store. It's like, wait, you buried the thing so far in the process. Someone had to survive a gauntlet just to get to the online ordering menu. So of course they're going to buy from you at that point. They came this far. You're not going to deter them, right? The people that you're going to deter, you already did. So then it's bringing it forward, right? And just making it clear. So the funnel, the shape of the funnel can tell you different things depending on what's going on, right? And so let's look at some things that you see. Great. Oh, yes. And look on mobile. Most of your orders are going to come from mobile, okay? So it can be convenient to pull up on a desktop. I do it all the time. Look at your desktop experience for sure. But you've got to try it on a phone. And you've got to try it on an iPhone. You've got to try it on an Android and see how it works. Because sometimes you see things that seem fine on a desktop that on a mobile phone are not working well, are not convenient, and easy to use. Even simple things like zip code, right? When you put in your zip code, does the field show you a numeric keypad or the text one? Things like that. Little touches help. Okay. So I've highlighted a few choices. I'm trying not to call out specific brands here, but I just went, and these are recent, like in the last week, I just went and tried some online ordering systems, and I found some interesting choices that add friction to the flow. The first one here I've highlighted is a checkout, and I have to check this box to agree with the terms of use and privacy policy. And so someone decided that we have to check this checkbox, and if I don't check that, I can't move along this wizard. Do we need a checkbox, or could that just be click wrapped, right? Because many times it just says, hey, by continuing, you agree. And we could cut a step out. And I don't think it would cost them anything, right? Another one here, this is a little sidebar that pops up along the side. And I had added an item to my cart. And then I went to proceed, and it said, oh, you got to enter your phone number. And it's like, well, hold on now. Maybe I don't want to give you my phone number yet. I'm not ready to do that. And also, a lot of times my phone number comes as part of a full autofill, right? So I click on the top of it or tap on the top of a form and it fills in my name, phone, email, and all the things all at once. And now you've added another step into the flow. And every single step is going to reduce your conversion rate. So just try it out and see where have you added friction. And sometimes that's purposeful. Here's an interesting one. This is a subtle bit of friction added to a flow. So this is where there's a menu that scrolls vertically, but then within a category like favorites here, it lists the first 4 and 4.5. You can kind of see half of that last one. And then if you want to see the next, you have to hit that little sidebar to see the next few. And I bet if we mapped out the sales for these items, there's a major drop off. I bet you the first 4 things in this list sell quite well. And I bet there's a big drop off where whatever's number 6 on this list doesn't get sold nearly as much. Why? Because you don't see it. And so for the guest to engage with your menu content, now they're having to tap and go side to side on this thing. I would probably just show a list here, right? If I was in charge of this, I'm not, but just think about the way things are presented, and does this make sense? And obviously, they can hit view all if they want to see all, right? But that's it's in the top right. Actually, it's easy to miss, right? So the treatment and presentation of these things can matter quite a bit. Okay, this one's my personal pet peeve. If you're doing this to someone, please try and stop immediately. This is where I've added my pizza to my order. I got a small pizza and I got a free one. They gave me this great offer, really cool, $10.99. And I hit checkout and then it pops up this box at me. And I'm pretty tech savvy, but now it's like, well, I got to log in. I don't want to log in. And now if I don't want to log in, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 other choices, I guess. I can reset my password. I can sign up. I can Google. I don't want to Google anything. I know that's a Google login. I'm being a little facetious, but not everyone's tech savvy. And then continue as guest is the thing I really want. And that has, I think, the least color and interest on this whole thing. They're probably killing their conversion rate at this step, right? I just looked at a landscape survey of things that were out there, but this one I think is really disastrous if you're doing this. I mean, it will definitely drive logins. I could even see maybe if you wanted to do a sign up and sign in button here, that'd be an okay thing. But starting with this is kind of crazy. Okay. I want to talk about choices you can make in menu construction and choices to add and remove friction along the way. And this is something that hopefully you just have in your current online ordering solution. You can make choices. And you can take this today. If you're looking for one of the things you can take back right away and do, one, you can look at your funnel, and two, you can look at how your menu's constructed. And when someone goes to order, and look at your most ordered things, right? Like what are the superstars in your menu that everyone should order? Okay. And then think about how the modifiers are presented, how the options and selections are presented. Defaults are so unbelievably powerful. Whatever you set as a default is going to happen most of the time. I've seen this crazy throughout, right? We've set tips to 15% for all delivery orders, and the tips went immediately to 15%, right? Whatever your default protein choice is, if you have one, that's going to be the most ordered thing, probably, unless it's really crazy. And so you can use defaults to drive friction out of the process and drive the guest behavior that you might want, right? You can also introduce friction where you want guests to stop and make a choice. And a protein choice is a good example of this, right? If you have I don't know, whatever the dish is, and there is a certain protein that comes with it, I can totally see, if I'm building a Chipotle bowl or some kind of thing like that, where I want to ask you, do you want chicken or steak or barbacoa or whatever the thing is, right? Because that's really important, and I want you to engage with that choice. So I'm adding friction in the process, but it's good friction, right? One of the other things here is de-emphasizing customization. So I'm just streamlining the whole thing. So a lot of times I see these things with all the toppings and customization just completely exploded out, and it can be overwhelming. And if we can de-emphasize those things, we can get the guest to the thing that they should be doing next. The next action is the most obvious thing. So in this case, we took this jumbo dog and we said, okay, well, we want the topping to be the superstar choice. We want you to think about that. Great, especially if maybe everything was plus 50 cents or something like that. If there was an ability to tack on a little upsell there, great. And then add to order. And we've collapsed the extra things. They're still there if you want them, but you don't have to. And Starbucks did a great job with this for a long time in their app, where you could add if you pick the tall latte or grande. Grande is their most popular size. A grande latte you can just add in one tap. And that's our quick add feature here on the left. Or you can pop in and customize it, right? So if you want to change the milk and size and those kinds of things, you can. But it turns out a grande latte with 2% milk was the thing they sell a lot, and just quick add it, right? So default everything, make it super fast and easy for people to add, and get out of their way. Because ultimately what you're doing is you're driving the conversion rate. And if you think about 100 people that view your menu, how many of them complete the process? How flat is that funnel? If it's perfectly flat, you should probably get more people in the top of the funnel. But can we improve those rates and get way more efficient, or even just marginally more efficient? Tying it back to that capital constrained environment where you're only going to get so many bites at the apple with these guests, right? Where you really want to make sure they have a great experience, and when they come to your online ordering to order with purchase intent, they make it through the process. They find what they want, they can order it easily and effectively, and hopefully just get on with their day, right? You can give them great food. All right.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I was going to say, I think we've all had that experience where we've gone to buy something and we hit the wall. We might have really wanted that thing, but there's something that blocks us. We don't have something available. It doesn't have Google Pay or Apple Pay. I don't know what the security code is. I don't want to log in, all those different types of things we were talking about. And there's so many ways in which I think we all could take a look at our own websites and would I want to take that flow journey? That's so critical, and because we've all had that experience as consumers. There's a lot of discussion around chat GBT, AI. It's not new to technology, but it's new to the popular culture and discussions. And so, how do you see this, the artificial intelligence, fitting into the world we're in with online ordering?
All right. So given that we're talking about trends of 2024, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about AI in some capacity, right? We've seen ChatGPT for the last 2 years now, give or take, and then there are prior models that we were playing with before. We've brought several features and really products to the market that leverage AI, and like Paytronix has been doing this for many years. The generative and language models are getting way better at a crazy fast rate. So I'm pretty plugged into this area of tech, and we're seeing massive strides happen in what the models are capable of. But honestly, how it matriculates down to restaurants at this level, if I were an operator, I'd wait and see. Not for too long, I'd still stay plugged in and see what people are doing, but I'd wait and see with the language models. But there are some use cases that make a ton of sense. And I wanted to hit on a few of them that we've explored and had great success with, right? So a few things. One of them, recommendations. This is an obvious thing, right? Where an AI can give much better recommendations based on a guest and their situation than you could possibly hope to configure manually, right? We can easily look and say, okay, what do guests like you order? How can we maneuver you to a more profitable order or a higher check subtotal or get you through the process? And sometimes just predicting the next thing that you're going to order anyway and just crushing that conversion rate. We saw our acceptance rates for recommendations double when we used AI over things that people had manually configured and set up and tried to employ. So that's just a layup, right? The models are really, really good at this. And I think you know that, right? We've seen that with Spotify and Netflix and all across the board, right? Recommendations are awesome, and sometimes they really hit it. A little more esoteric, but menu optimization. This is one around conversion rate, but we built a solution that allows a restaurant to create variations of their menu. So saying, well, let's reorder things or show and hide certain things, or even at the modifier level, show and hide certain things. Show certain items, hide certain items, those kinds of things. And we saw a massive jump, 3.5% in conversion rate. And what it does is it takes some percentage of your traffic, like 10%, like 90% of traffic gets the normal menu, and then 10% gets one of those variants. And then we can kind of figure out through algorithms the most effective ones. And then we say, well, this one is the best one provably, right? With statistical significance. And a 3.5% conversion rate is a massive lift, right? When you think about how many thousands of people view your menu in a given month, if you're able to convert 3.5% more through your first party process, just by showing them a more optimized bit of menu content, right? Showing the right things in the right order. We saw a small check lift here too, but really the big game was in conversion rate, getting them to the content they wanted to see so that they could get through the process. Menu search, we're seeing great results with AI here too, because generative AI can tell that a Milky Way and a Snickers are candy bars. So you type a candy bar, it can get you to those things really fast and easy, right? And the Milky Way, you don't mean the galaxy, and Snickers, you don't mean laughing, right? Examples like that. So, and it can understand if you take the full description of an item, when they type pizza, it can understand that a deluxe means a pizza, for example, whereas a more routine search algorithm couldn't get you there. One of the other huge gains we've seen with language models specifically, when I first got access to the language models, I wrote the first feedback module in 2012. And when we got the language models, the first thing we said was, wow, we have to put this in our feedback solution. So we have a feedback module, and the operators can respond to the guest. And AI does such a good job of taking that guest feedback and writing a great response, and even generating the entire full response of, should we give them a refund? Should we give them a partial refund? Should we send them an offer? What should we do, right? And helping offer a decision and then writing the full content. And we've seen our clients respond to 5 times as much feedback when they use the AI, which is like staggering. That's a staggering level of efficiency and improvement, right? So again, just trying to be really efficient, do more with less, and make sure you're getting the most value out of these things. So these are the ways I've seen AI be really effective so far. If you have other ideas, I'd love to hear them. We have a decent sized group on the line here, so I'm always curious what people are thinking, but these are the ones that have made landfall and have been really successful.
Great.
Okay.
Man.
I think we have some time for Q&A as well.
Yep.
We do. Thank you both so much for that great information. So as said, we will be turning over to questions from our audience now. Please don't forget to use the submit functionality on your webinar console to ask a question if you still have one you haven't entered yet. We do have a couple that have come in already. So the first one is, how else can I maximize the value of my current online ordering solution?
Okay. Probably a bunch of things, some of which we already talked about. I would, read the manual. I know that's kind of a simple thing to say, but if you're already paying for something, make sure you are using that thing to its fullest capability. And I can promise you, like if you're using Paytronix online ordering, there are probably features and functions that you're not using, you don't know about, because you just, we try and publish as much as we can with the release notes and with content announcements, those kinds of things. But software tends to have so many features. And do you ever really go look at all the menus and see what's in there? I'm a big manual reader, right? I get a car and I read the manual and it's like, oh, it has these little features you never really thought about, right? But people spend their time and energy designing these things, and you should get the most value of it by using all the features. So again, I hate to sound like that's obvious, but it's again another thing you could go do today, right? Like take the rest of your day and just pop the hood on your online ordering today, go read the docs, see what's in there, poke around through those kind of menus at the end of the long tail that you never really looked at and say, gee, what do these do, right? And what could we be doing? So we have that. Make sure it's easy for your guests to get to. So make sure that when they're looking for you, that they find your online ordering. Again, I know this may sound really obvious, but most of the time, guests do not come to the restaurant website. When you think about how you order online, you type in the restaurant brand into Google and hit go. And Google then shows you the knowledge card with the locations near you and online order, those kinds of things. And then they hit order online from that. And they may go to your website, but they're probably going to hit order online from that too. So, and we've seen like the breakdown somewhere on the order of 70% of brand engagements never go to the brand website. So make sure that your Google profiles are up to snuff and that the ability to get to your online ordering from Google is there. That's going to become more important with Google. Their Google ordering platform is going to go away and move to a direct link, which means your first party platform should be up to snuff. So kind of calling back to the beginning, try it, use it as an end user, and just imagine with a blindfold on, like, how is this going for me? And are there things that we could look to streamline and say, geez, do we really need this checkbox here? Do we really need this choice here? Can I make this easier? Look at what you order. If you're a pizza place, right, a third of your revenue is probably a large pepperoni pizza. So how can we make the large pepperoni pizza the simplest thing to get to? It probably will get you that, conversion lift. I don't want to hate with some really obvious stuff, but those tend to work out really well. I think those would be the main things that I'd be looking at. Make sure delivery is available is an obvious one too, I guess, but make sure you have that. So if you have first party, your direct ordering solution, make sure a guest can get delivery, because otherwise they will have to flip back to the third parties, right? When we look at the third party platforms, when someone goes to DoorDash and Uber, those kinds of things, 98% of those orders are delivery and like 2% of those are guest pickup. So a guest strongly correlates those marketplace apps with delivery, and the converse is that they're equivalating your direct platform with takeout and pickup. And we want to break that. We're going to make sure they know they can still get delivery, feature that prominently, and make sure it's available.
Great. We have a couple more questions. So first, do you have other thoughts on how to stand out in the current environment?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, a lot. Okay. Some of these are non-tech things, but make sure your menu looks sharp, right? If you pull up your menu, it should look awesome. You should have rock and food imagery, modifier imagery. I didn't even show that in the pictures, I think, but make sure if your platform allows you to put images to your modifiers, pickles and all those things, make sure that's there too, so the guests can engage with that and it can work really well. Read your feedback surveys. There's gold in there. Look and see what's in there and respond and look for those kinds of trends. Non-tech, look at menu engineering, and especially how that can play online. Like in a physical menu, you draw the box around the item you want them to see, and you can use pricing strategies like that to anchor to a high price and get them to pick a lower priced option. You can employ some of those similar things online, right? So I've talked to a couple operators that are doing, I'm calling it kind of an unbundling or deconstructing of a menu. So they're taking an item that was, let's say, priced at $18 and had a protein with it, and they've deconstructed it to bring the price down to about like 12 or 12.50 or 12.49, something like that. And then the protein is an add-on choice. So then in response to guests wanting to down select into a cheaper thing and conserve cash, they can say, oh, great, well, I don't want to spend $18 on a thing, but I'll spend $12 on a thing. But I might spend $12 on a thing and then add a $5 protein choice and get to roughly the same place, right? So I would look at how you're showing your menu and look at, can you deconstruct those things and try it, right? Especially if you have digitally the ability to try things out. Either you could do it through test marketing too, right? There's different ways to lever that, but try that tactic out, see how it works. Preliminarily, I've heard good results from that. Look at ways to do upsells where you can as well. Again, starting guests at a lower price point, maneuvering them up slightly is probably going to be more effective than hitting them with a higher price up front. Combos, I know this probably sounds contrary to the unbundling, but a combo can demonstrate value, right? So that's how you push back and say, well, hey, look, I can give you, and this is where you get the 4 for 4. Wendy's is doing that kind of thing where it's like, you can get all this stuff for X, right? So we'll give you an entree, side, and a drink all for some price. And then what you're hitting that there is perceived value for a given price point. And even then you can actually upsell within a combo, right? So they start with that entree, allow them to pick a protein or a higher price thing. I would layer, as throughout my menu, I would try and layer in those little upsells, even if it's just through modifiers, right? Where they can add 50 cents here and there for little things to drive your average subtotal up while keeping your anchor price, the initial price the guest engages with, down. So that I would try some pricing strategies. You're probably doing some of this stuff today, but it may have more impact now that guests are more price sensitive. So things like decoy pricing, you see that at the movie theater where a small popcorn is like $5 and a medium popcorn is like $5.25. And so it's like, of course, I'm going to move from the small to the medium because it's only 25 cents more. Like, who in their right mind is going to get a small popcorn? That's just a decoy price. They don't want you to buy the small. So those kinds of things, a good, better, best tiering can make sense too. So I think some of the pricing tactics can have more impact and can be tried probably easier digitally than they can in store. So I would try some of those things.
Here's another question. Is there a sweet spot for third-party platform markups, or should we simply depend on the commission rates? We're currently at 22%. What are the trends in the market?
I don't know that there's a sweet spot. And most of what I see is where you more or less match your markup to the commission, give or take. I don't think I have any data to suggest that there's one price over another. It's going to tie back to the value a guest perceives, right? If you hit them with a $25 price for a thing they're going to perceive as worth $12, they're going to go away. So you got to kind of dial in what you think is reasonable based on what you're offering. But yeah, somewhere in that 15 to 20-ish% range is pretty common for what we see. And I don't like any of it. It's unfortunate that's what we live in, but it does make me happier when I talk to an operator and I look and like half of their volume might be coming from marketplace, but they're happy to get it because at least their economics aren't broken on it. And if they're able to funnel off some of the guest traffic into their main platforms, then the guests can receive the proper price for these things and still get the full value of the experience, right? They can get delivery if they want it from the third-party fulfillment through first-party channels. They can get the guest engagement. The brand can build that relationship with them and all the, we get back on a positive path. So that's how I like to think of it.
What are the limits on marketing to third-party customers to convert to first-party apps? Does it violate any policies from Uber and DoorDash? We mark up third-party so customers would save by ordering direct.
Candidly, it may. I haven't read the policies in depth, but you need to do what's right for your brand. And this is what's happening, right? So this is just how it is. And we've seen great success with attaching the conversion offer to the bag. It works. So that's what I would do.
Okay, well, I think that's all the questions we have today, and that will conclude our program. Many thanks to Paytronix for making this program possible, to our audience for attending, and of course to our panel for sharing their insights. And as mentioned, a recording of the program will be linked on qsrmagazine.com, or you can use today's login link to view it at any time and download slides. If you have any questions while watching on demand, don't forget you can still ask those too. Thanks again and have a great day.